First of all, very nice to see you again. Very nice having you here. We know it's morning. It's not so early morning. I think it's 9:30 your time as you're on the West Coast. It's very nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Great. And I can tell you, I look forward to the opportunities to also meet in person again. And I think everyone in the audience probably will agree to that. We all look forward having more and more meetings. And I think there's something you will tell us later, which might help and contribute to make meetings and events possible again, because you are working on a great product, which is a 15-second COVID-19 test, which will change a lot. We don't end with a very high probability. That will change and will hopefully make our lives much easier the next 18 months, because I think in the Western world, for sure, we will have much more to work around COVID-19, and worldwide, it's probably more than those 18 months.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right.
So before we jump into that, I would like to introduce you to the audience. And I must say, for me, it's an honor to introduce you, Mark Anderson, to our audience. Mark is the founding CEO of Pattern Computer, Inc., and chair of the Future and Review Conference, which is now in its 17th year, which The Economist has named the best technology conference in the world. And I must agree, we've been several times there, and it was always a blast, a great event, a memorable event. And still remember some of the boat tours in San Diego then. You are the chair of the Strategic News Service, SNS, and publisher of the weekly SNS Global Report on Technology and the Global Economy, which is read by Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Vint Cerf, Michael Dell, Greg Venter, Jeff Bezos, and other technology executives and investors worldwide. You've made a career of making accurate predictions using pattern discovery technologies. I think first probably it was all in your head. You accurately predicted the global financial collapse of 2007 and 8, as well as the oil price collapse of 2014-15, the two most important economic events of modern times. Actually, we probably need to add COVID-19 now.
COVID now, yeah.
And I think nobody has been seeing it that it will happen last year, but I think we all knew something like that will happen at some point.
That's right.
So you're the co-founder of the new pattern recognition, co-founding CEO of the new pattern recognition, of the pattern recognition laboratory at UC San Diego, a member of the Australian American Leadership Dialogue, and an advisory board member of the CallIT2 and the Qualcomm Institute and the GSA Center of Excellence. So you provide advice to top VCs, the American government, including the White House and the State Department, the British Cabinet Minister's Office, and in industry-leading firms including Dell, Microsoft, Google, Symantec, Nuance Communications, and many others. Your work was recently showcased in the 16-minute segment, The Great Brain Robbery, and you're frequently guest on nationally public radio, All Things Considered, as well as the BBC World News and Bloomberg TV. You regularly appear in The Economist, the Financial Times, New York Times, Wall Street, and other media. You also are a successful author. Your recent book, The Pattern Future, Finding the World's Great Secrets and Predicting the Future Using Pattern Discovery, describes how you consistently make successful predictions across a wide variety of disciplines and how others can employ your techniques. I should have a link here for that so that everyone can easily just, one click by. You earned the bachelor and master's in marine biology and biochemistry from Stanford University, and you have conducted doctoral work in biochemical ecology at the University of British Columbia. And so therefore, Petra and I, we are very excited to have you here and spending some time and giving us some of your knowledge, and of course telling us about the things you're doing also now in parallel to SNS and so many other things, what you're doing. So very welcome to have you here. Now, I've been seeing you very often being a moderator of world-class thought leaders and fireside chats, so which sets really the bar very high for me. I will not try because I will not be able to achieve that. So very clearly, you have the stage, and be happy to have you here and give you some speaking points so that you have the chance to actually tell what you're doing and specifically also, of course, with pattern computer, what you're driving forward there. So therefore, before we go to COVID-19 testing, and some of the stuff what you do on treatments, let's start with SNS. What is SNS? What is Strategic News Service, and why is it different?
So thank you, Ragnar, for that very, very long introduction. And I thought we were almost going to be out of time here, but we'll have 5 minutes left, I think. So that's good. SNS, Strategic News Service, I started this in '95 in June. I think it was the first paid newsletter on the internet. And there were two reasons to start it. One was I just knew that I was good at predicting things. I always had been. And so that was an interest of mine. And then I happened to have a background that included, in the tech world, that included both computing and telecommunications. And that was very rare at that time. Everybody's either in one world or the other. So I knew they were colliding. And so by having a foot in each, I thought I might be able to bring value to making predictions in those two worlds. And so at that time, that's the basis of what made it different. And for 10 years, that was true. And then I kind of wore that out. That became boring, I think. And at that point, I'd learned enough about how to make predictions that I upped the game a little bit, or a lot. And the game, if that's a game, became, can you make accurate predictions in how technology drives the world economy? And so that's today our charter. And that also is different. I would suggest we probably were the first to have a deep understanding of that issue. The technology, we have a mantra at SNS, and the mantra is, in the post-information age, technology drives every sector of the global economy. And so we've brought, I would say, science basically to what was a journalistic enterprise before that. And by doing that, we up the game in being accurate in predicting instead of just sharing opinions all the time. We don't like doing that. We don't have a political perspective, really. And we also brought ideas forth that hadn't been seen before in a lot of different fields, because we were making pattern discoveries in these various areas. And that became a differentiator also, I think, for SNS.
Yeah. So did you use technology early on pattern recognition, or was it?
It was so, as you mentioned, I was always trained. I've been trained in science since I was a kid. When I was 5, I knew I was going to be Elon. Matter of fact, Elon flew here to Friday Harbor, to my town, when he was thinking about starting SpaceX. He flew here for lunch, and he told me, he said, "They tell me I'm crazy. Should I do this?" I'm going, "Absolutely, but you have to put me on your advisory board." So that had always been my dream to do rockets, you know. So I guess everybody has that dream, maybe, but I thought that I would be a scientist all my life. I was going to be a white coat guy in a research lab somewhere. And you can imagine how difficult it was when the light bulb went off instead of on. And I realized that that life is not well suited to my personality. And I think I probably would have been fired early on at any university for saying a number of inappropriate things, which may have all been true, but would have been perceived politically as being disastrous. So I wisely left that idea by the side of the road. But this idea of having a scientific perspective and the scientific method, which we were all taught, in 4th grade or something, that is actually a fail. And when I looked, the better I got at science, what you're really doing is you're using that method. So here's the method. We all know it. You make up an idea. It's called a hypothesis. And then you take that and you test it in an experiment. And you find out that it's half right or half wrong or whatever. And then you go again. That's the scientific method. Well, the very first step is a fail. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Like, well, what did you make up? I don't know. I just, I had an idea. I had a hunch. Well, that's not very good. Well, so make a better idea. Great questions often lead to great discoveries. Like Einstein, he wanted to fly next to a piece of light. Well, that was a great question. What does it look like? So I think that I realized when I was around 21, I just had this epiphany one day. I know exactly where I was standing. I was in a bookstore. And the epiphany was, that was a fail, that pattern recognition isn't just something, it is the thing. It's how our brains work, and it's how you make that inference, that hypothesis, as best as you can in science. And that it ought to be the most important thing, not just the thing that starts the project off. And when I recognized that, I thought, well, that means that your thinking, your brain, has to be really, really good at this. Pattern recognition, and you better get that right. So, going backwards, Piaget knew this, I think, a long time ago. But if you were going to teach kids from the beginning, you would give them classical music, highly structured patterns, in mathematics, which is classical music, Bach and Mozart and all that. And people know about this. And you would give them blocks that are pattern blocks to play with, so they get kinetic acquaintance with patterns, and so on. That is exactly, in my humble opinion, what you'd want to do with children. So I had to go back and become a child again, basically, and start from scratch, and learn what are the requirements for being good at that.
And so from there, then you got it in your brain. So how did you get it then into chips and computers? So
I think we've now begun to touch on the fact that I write about things I have no right to know about in any way whatsoever, on a regular basis, every week almost. So that sounds pretty arrogant. And I think in some ways it probably is arrogant, unless you really buy into this whole pattern discovery idea. And so let's just get that out in front. The idea of pattern recognition is apparent to everyone in the room, I bet, or our virtual room. It's not hard to understand that, but that's kind of what Google does. I mean, that's kind of what neural nets everywhere do. The idea of pattern discoveries is a bigger idea, and it's not entirely obvious. In an age when everyone is more and more specialized, and when training sets are more and more specialized, and when neural nets are becoming more and more special, et cetera, right? Don't do that. Do the opposite of that. So if you want to make an incremental discovery, work for Google, and you're going to find out how to move the needle from 98 to 99% predictive rate for young women who will buy a red dress or a black dress or a green dress. That's worth a lot of money, but in my opinion, that's the dumbest thing you could do. So, no, I'm sorry if there's someone from Google on here. I like the company mostly, but that mathematics is not exciting. So what if you could find things you didn't have any idea about, right? That's pattern discovery. So, to finish that science thing, if you flip the scientific method and you said, no hypothesis at all, give me your data, and not a little data, don't get it focused, don't shut it down more and more, open it up more and more. Take that funnel and include. We did all the flight operations in America, and Accenture asked us to do it. And we went wider and wider. We added 7 more data sets than they gave us. We went 3 more years than they wanted, and so on, right? So we had a very large data set, and we found things that nobody had ever found before. Those are pattern discoveries. And we didn't have a clue. I mean, we weren't saying, I think it's, you know, the weather, or we just ran the data. So you flip the method entirely. And what happens is you create hypotheses instead of starting with them. That's useful because they're coming out of the data instead of out of your head or your bias or your emotions or your past. So I was doing this stuff mentally, as you mentioned, for a long time, 20 years or something. And I had this idea one week to do something that I was not qualified for again. And that was, we needed a chip for this. No, there were no chips. There were DSPs and so on, but there were really no chips that you could call a pattern recognition processor. And so here's the conceit. If I happen to be right, and I was pretty confident by then because I've been doing this for a long time, if it's true that pattern recognition is the most important thing in thinking and discovering, why don't we have a chip? You got chips for payroll, the 8088. And so I wrote a concept paper called The Most Important Chip Not Yet Invented. And it was the PRP, the pattern recognition processor. And then I got a call from a guy who at IBM, a great, nice guy. And he said, we're working on one. And they had a secret project with DARPA, which they then were about to reveal at a launch in Almaden. And it's called True North. And so they had been working for 8 years to build one of these things. And it is a beautiful chip. So I thought, that's interesting. DARPA and IBM and a lot of money, 200 people, 8 years, international effort. This isn't just kind of a goofy idea. These guys are hot on this and they're very smart people. And it's like speaking to yourself, like, Mark, pay more attention, So I did. And that led to the pattern computer.
Yeah, great story. And I think there's also another story, how you how did it then begin with pattern computer? Yeah, I think, maybe you can tell us that story.
Sure. Stories are fun. I don't know if you guys were there. This is in 2015.
And we missed that year. Okay,
too bad. Well, but you will remember that we had a thing that David Brin, the science fiction and author and physicist, brought to us. Actually, it was like reality television for geeks, and so we call it the CTO Design Challenge. And the idea was pick 10 people who are in some way appropriate for that theme for that year, put them on stage. This will be something that they are not trained to do, whatever it is, solve this problem, and then report out at the end of the week. And they get judged. There are 3 judges. So it's a lot like, a reality TV show, and but it's for important things like climate change, So in 2015, the challenge was build a pattern computer for us. I know you've never heard of such a thing. Here's what it is. It makes discoveries. It's purpose built to find patterns and use only off-the-shelf hardware, but you can use any kind of software you want to imagine. And so they went away. This is like a day and night thing that these 10 people do. They're all CTOs from around the world, men and women both. And then they came back on Friday and they reported out. Now we've been doing this, I think we've probably been doing this for 6 or 7 years at least before this happened. They reported out and they got a standing ovation. Well, the judges, 100%, standing ovation from the crowd. This is a tough crowd. I mean, you know who they are. They're very smart CEOs and CTOs. 2 standing ovations from the crowd. We went from the stage to the coffee room, and by the time we got to the coffee room, we had been funded $100,000 with more to come, and staffed with the founders. And the investor, the first investor, was our SNS ambassador for angels. He was the angel expert. It was his money, and then I said, John, it's not a company, it's a panel. It's a panel. And he goes, yeah. And then Mike Riddle, who's a co-founder of Autodesk, who was our first employee, he comes in and he says, I want to join this company. And I said, Mike, same thing, right? It's not a company, it's a panel. And then I thought, wait a minute, Mark, these guys are smarter than you are. I think they're seeing this in a different way. And so we founded the company then.
Yeah. What a great story. Yeah. It's, I hope we will also this session, people will see, and actually we will show them at some of the universities here in Hamburg, where we'll do a lot of stuff to tell them, you know, you just need to come up with ideas and be visionaries, and you might end up like Mark, being on stage, coming from stage, and then get the first funding for a great idea.
Yeah.
So on patterns, I know today everyone talks about neural networks. Yeah. So what's the different what you do with on pattern discoveries?
I was at a private Department of Energy meeting not long ago. 500 companies there, including IBM and GE and so on. Siemens, I'm sure, was there. And the question was, I asked this question. I said, if when I say AI, if you don't believe I'm saying neural networks, raise your hand. And no one raised their hand. Mm. So 100% of the people who are from these major firms who are working on AI, there's an AI meeting, they were using neural networks. I think not entirely, but you know, mostly. So I was kind of shocked. And when we started out, we have a neural network in our architecture, but it's picture 50 puzzle pieces, and one of those puzzle pieces is a neural network, which we've modified, of course. So when we started to, you know, I think a lot of folks start with the idea, I'll start with a neural network and I'll do this. We'll develop an algo, you know, to go with it or for it. We didn't do that. We said, what is the best architecture for finding patterns? And then from that, what is the best mathematics that we can find or make for the same thing? And so the result was, and we were in stealth mode, so we didn't tell anybody our name, or we had a different name. And we didn't put a name on the building, you know. So for 2.5 years, that's all we did. And we found the best mathematicians we could find, and we found the best coders we could find, and so on. And they just worked in secret. And all they did was work on what I call new mathematics. And Murray Cantor, who is a very famous mathematician, calls it new mathematics. He's kind of frustrated that we haven't written a book about this new mathematics, but we keep telling Murray it's a company, you know, we have shareholders. And so that's a very unusual situation, because we're not venture funded, and we have kind of intentionally not been. I don't think it would be possible to be venture funded and do what I'm telling you. I think there'd be no patience for that. And so luckily, we were supported quite strongly by individual investors and angels. And the result is we had the time to do what I just said. So we spent 2.5 years, and we're still doing it today. So now we've been working for 5 years on secret new mathematics, which is totally focused on finding patterns. Mm-hmm. So that, you know, that's quite different from saying, here's Kaggle, and let's find the right neural network to solve this problem. We'll modify it. Yeah, it's very different.
Quite interesting. Tell us about now what you're doing on biotech with pattern computers.
Okay, so to put all the stuff we've just discussed into one idea, which is, you know, a true story, actually. So if you could build a computer system which was excellent and purpose-built for making pattern discoveries, what could it do that the other computer couldn't do, or the other mathematics couldn't do? And the answer is, it can find things that are true pattern discoveries that even you didn't know about, and you weren't asking for, really. So we went after, as soon as we came out of hiding, we had a thing called Splash One in San Francisco, and we showed some things in bio. Then we went after breast cancer. So there's a target in breast cancer. Europe has a big contest this summer about this exact disease, right? So it's called triple negative breast cancer. It's the only subclass which has no direct treatment. It's a gigantic financial prize if you win. Merck has spent about $5 billion so far, I think, to get there. And it's a gigantic problem. It's not easy. It's a really tough problem. So we got a data set that had been public, open source for 20 years, called Metabrick, out of Berkeley Labs. And it's like, okay, well, everyone in the world has had it at this one, you know. We're the number 2,000th team to go after this. And we did our runs, and we checked the literature. Every paper published had one gene. And in 3 cases, 2 genes. Well, we all know, I think, cancer is complicated and it's not going to be 1 or 2 genes. So we found up to hundreds, I don't know, a lot of genes, and we saw them in families. We could see their binding to each other, how closely they were correlated to each other. That helped us understand the mechanism of what they were doing and their expression, and on and on. And so we used that, and we made 17 combination cocktail predictions. We have an engine which sorted only for FDA approved, pre-approved drugs against gene expressions in that picture that we were seeing. And then we filed patents on these 17 combination therapies. And of the 17, 2 of them are in their 4th and 5th layers of positive testing.
Yes. Holy
moly. So 2 out of 17, I mean, big pharma usually gets, I don't know, 1 out of 1,000 or 10,000 or some number. It's kind of hard.
And to a specific, to breast cancer, or which cancer?
Yes, this is for triple negative breast cancer.
Okay.
The toughest one. And then we decided to get a little more aggressive and to demonstrate that this computer system, we're not biologists. I mean, we have biologists, but Petra Computer is a computer company, not a bio company. So we thought, okay, let's just prove out that we can do this well. So we made the commitment that in the calendar year this year, we will move the needle on the top 5 cancer killers. So we're working with the Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center on a 2-year project, just about done, on colorectal cancer worldwide. We have the breast cancer stuff I just mentioned to you. We are just about to begin testing at Charles River for ovarian cancer. We're starting prostate runs now, and lung cancer is half done.
Mm. Do you get enough samples together so that you have enough data, or do you need more data?
We need more data, and it's frustrating and a little saddening, Ragnar, that I understand scientists. I was one. I realize the importance of data privacy to make your career go, but the difficulty that we've encountered in getting data to help save lives is disappointing at best. And that's true for COVID. It's true for everything. Cancer. So it is difficult. It is the worst part of our experience. The worst part is not finding the treatments. It's getting the data.
Yeah. I know that there are initiatives here in Germany and in Europe now, specifically in healthcare, to get more data. I also know here in Hamburg is a company who used data from Jena, and we're able now to do detect breast cancer earlier, so for diagnosis.
Very important.
And so I might connect you to them because they use that data, and that has enhanced really their diagnosis, and they're going through approval. Yeah,
that could be a great partnership.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just should have thought about it earlier. Now let's come to the other topic, what I kind of claimed. You're claiming to have the best COVID rapid detection system in the world, which is really a big claim. Yeah. So, can you provide some more detail?
Yeah. And this is a combination of overnight surprise for us to be involved in this, but it's also a 3 or 4 year piece of work that we didn't, like COVID itself, which we did not see coming. Thank you, China. We had been looking at a technology with Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory, National Labs, knowing that it fit our mathematics very well, but not knowing where we would apply it. So when COVID showed up, it was like, oh, that would fit, probably. So it took us another 8 months of jerking around with the lawyers and all that stuff. Now we're working with Los Alamos National Laboratory as our partner on this. We have a partnership with Cantor Bio in San Diego for handling of all the materials, because you have to have special permits and so forth. And we're like in our third version right now inside the company of building this system. So we know we were tracking 380 competitive companies. So we're pretty well informed about the industry right now and the competition. And so this claim that we make, as crazy as it sounds, I think it is a real claim. I think, you know, we have it already, and we're going to get the hardest part is the last 5 points, and we're going to get there, I think. So we are, depending upon what day you ask me, we're somewhere on positives, we're somewhere between 98, 99.5, 99.8. And on negatives, which we had fewer of course, they were harder to get. We had to collect them ourselves. We exchanged free wine and cheese for spit, you know. So yeah, I think Kai gave some. So we now have some partners. We're moving from tens to hundreds to thousands, and that's kind of what you have to do. And we're going international, as you know. So we'll be collecting in Chile, I think in Australia, and hopefully in Hamburg. So all in all, we'll have a good variety internationally. We'll have a good number in terms of the N. And I think we'll get the negatives up to where the positives are.
So I hear, yeah. So compared,
go ahead.
Yeah. So you're using spit as a material, yeah, and are able to analyze it. You probably need to use optical sensors, yeah, yes, compared to basically chemicals. Because when I was just looking here, because every day I do an antigen test, yeah, but it's normally the chain reaction what you have, and then you have those controls there. So you use an optical sensor, and so spit, optical, and you're able with your pattern recognition to do it on, I hear, above 98%. Yeah.
Yes.
On the specification, which is quite high, and 15 seconds, that could allow bigger events to happen again. Yeah. And I think it's, you know, everyone, I know a lot, specifically in the US, who are on shelter in somewhere outside, yeah, or Hawaii, you know, that would be my kind of preferred option. Yeah, but because they don't want to catch COVID-19, what we all know is can be really deadly. And there is, when we see the speed of vaccination, it's something we need to deal with, specifically in the Western world, still foreseeable for the next 1.5 years. And then we have those kind of mutations. Yeah? So here in Hamburg, they just came up with a 2G, so you can go to restaurants or events if you're vaccinated, fully vaccinated, or if you already got the virus. Yeah? But the problem is with Delta, we all know you still can be infectious. So it hasn't really the rebuild of the virus, which actually means if you do events or if you go in, you still need testing, and probably daily testing.
Mm-hmm. And so there's another problem. There's another problem, which is there's a window of time after your first contact where the tests often don't register. So that time window could be as short as about 48 to 72 hours, or as long as a week or two. Yeah. And so there's this period of time in the front of that where you might have been exposed and gotten it, but you're not showing up on the test yet. Mm. And we're hoping that we can get inside somewhere in the 24 to 48 window. Yes. So that would mean that we could actually, what we would be offering if this works out, if this works out properly, we would, and we don't know that this is true yet, but I think it might be true. If it is, then imagine that you're a cruise line, right? They have a huge problem, much bigger than an NFL or a soccer game or a football game. And so imagine that if you test every morning, it takes 15 seconds. What you could offer as a cruise line is we guarantee you won't be exposed to contagion. Mm. And that's better than saying, I didn't find the virus, or I did, or, you know, the antigen. So that gets really interesting. Then you're closing the time gap to a place where you find somebody's that morning, next morning, they were good yesterday, not good today, thanks, you got to get off, you know, welcome to Bremen. And meanwhile, nobody got sick. Yes. Except that person. Yeah.
I think we are all tired of lockdowns. We need more solutions, and we need to act on that. I think we all have been sitting somewhere on the sideline. Now you are working on something which can help change this. So I think we talked about it earlier. You can needs some help. You need more data also there. So you need spit and so let's do something there. And if there's anybody in the audience, and actually I know we have quite some good contacts here also into government. Let's see what we can do with our healthcare hubs, what we have here to get more data together so that you can also use it. So when you start rolling out your product, we'll talk about that in a moment, it also will have German data, so it can be also applied to Germans. Yeah? That is important. Yeah. So when do you expect kind of coming out with a product there? Any kind of timelines? Yeah,
we haven't released it to anybody, so I'm not going to broadcast it today. But I think the rough answer is it'll be during this calendar year. So we have more to do. But we know the system works, you know, so we're tuning up all the different parts in parallel. It's like warp speed, you know, the same kind of thing. We're working on the third generation while we're working on the second generation, while we're working on the gathering technology all at the same time. So it'll be during this year, and I don't know exactly which date, but by the end of the year we'll be shipping.
Yeah, which actually would be great, because that could mean by New Year's Eve we can actually tell everyone, hey, there's a solution to actually, in a very short time frame, to detect the virus, which actually means for the whole day you're safe. Yeah, and what that means is we might be able to go on holiday, not necessarily to some of the Asian countries, but clearly in Germany or in Europe without any kind of big risks there, if we get the products out and get enough people using it.
That's right.
So there is hope.
Yeah. So this is, for people who are in the medical side of COVID, there have been a lot of mistakes made. That's fine, but it's true. Our CDC has had a really bad record, I think. But our view of this problem biologically is that vaccination is not the answer. It is part of the answer. And you need to have two pieces. You also have to have good detection, rapid, accurate detection. If you only have the vaccination, as Israel has learned, right? Even if you've got everybody in the country vaccinated with a good vaccine, it didn't keep them from getting Delta. So you have to pair these two things together, and then you've got something. Then you don't have to have a lockdown. Now think about how much money the world would save just right in that one sentence. Right? I don't know the number, Ragnar, but it's a really big number.
I can tell you in Germany, 1 month of lockdown, and still certain companies were working, has cost the government about 15 billion euro.
Wow.
15 billion for 1 month. And that's
in one country.
Yes. Yeah. And I think compare this, if Germany would have ordered from 5 or 6 vaccination companies the amount of vaccinations just upfront, they could have had and then those companies could have produced already while they went through approval. We could have had all the doses already in January. Now, of course, then comes the next problem: how do you distribute it fast enough? But I think what I would hope is, if there's a solution like yours on the horizon, I would, we should pull in money, give you enough money so that you can start kind of the production, because at the end, it's then the software you can change and also modify, and to adjust it even to any kind of mutations, and it would make our lives next year then much safer.
I would hope that Germany could be a leader in Europe for this, or even in the world. We're talking to three other countries, including the United States. We think the US will be not the first. So maybe the third, or the fourth. But I think that you guys, Germany, could be the first in Europe for sure. And, in the first 1, 2, or 3, and certainly the largest economy that would be using this first. And that would be pretty cool.
So let's see what we can do. It's we need to get enough, on our side, who kind of look forward and not just look backwards, and also are willing to take some risk. Yeah. And maybe we do some fundraise even for that, but we clearly also have governments who should take that together instead of on the sorry side, do more lockdowns. Yeah, that cost us much more.
Yeah.
So being careful with our time, because we can probably go on for forever just on that kind of topic. Yeah. Have you got any kind of external recognition for your discoveries? I mean, actually, I would, as there are venture capitalists in the market, or government, or any external recognition.
Well, so there are different ways to answer, I think. As I mentioned earlier, we haven't been actively trying to engage with venture capitalists. It's not that we wouldn't talk to them or that we might find a happy match, but in general, because we are doing something which is extremely difficult and technical, that isn't like Facebook. I'm trying to be kind here. So I think we have picked a different path. We're looking right now. So what the answer is, in fundraising, we've been very successful without talking to venture people. And our valuations, we're not supposed to talk about this publicly, but we've done really well, and we have a good chart of what we've done and what we're worth and so on. It's a good chart. So I would say that the investment community has been an outside, external affirmation of what we're up to at every step. And then customers is a different answer, right? So we have the Fred Hutch Center is one of the top, 3 or 4 in the world. We're on a 10-year master partnership with them. We work daily with Los Alamos National Lab and Berkeley National Lab. So, these are the best labs in the country, maybe. So, that's good. We have academic partners in different universities, so that's helpful. These are all external double checks for us. We even have think tanks, called internal think tanks, where we have people from the universities or from the labs as an outside part of a circle, and we have the inside people are the other part of the circle, which meet every week. So there's a lot of ways of checking, and then another way to say it would be, we have the stuff on the wall. So we have Red Herring Top 100 this year for North America. And we just got, we got a thing called the Keiretsu. Keiretsu, I don't know if it's well known in Germany, but they don't claim to be much larger than VCs in terms of startup funding. Yeah, it's probably true. And we got the most valuable company award from our Northwest Keiretsu. And then we just last month got the Alexandra J. Noble Award for fundamental contributions in computing and medicine. And that just to frame this properly, Tony Fauci, among the other recipients, Bill Gates, Tony Fauci, the two BioNTech, the two mRNA inventors, and Eric Yuan, who is the CEO of Zoom, and we're on Zoom. So it was a good crowd, and Pattern was in with that crowd.
Yeah, and come on, when you look at BioNTech, and there's another company where I always pronounce the name wrong in Germany, CureVac. They have some investors who also believe in something, and look at BioNTech. I think last year they did still a big loss, but this year they had billions of profits now. Yeah, so it can become a very profitable business if you get something right and very right. Yeah, so I think we'll see some completely new companies, and would be great seeing your company becoming one of those with this technology approach towards patterns, which can be used in medicine. But also, you're also beyond bio and medicine. Yeah. So what are you doing there?
So we are involved in, what we do is we look for really big problems in various, that's kind of, from the compute side, it's not so much about what do you know about mining or resource extraction or veterinary medicine. It's more about does the math fit the project, and is it a big enough problem to bother with? And so that's one way we decide. So we have a tier 1 aerospace company, and we're helping them with manufacturing. They have really big manufacturing problems, and they can't solve them, but we solved them for them. So they're in their second or third year as a customer with us. And we're trying to help them throughout the entire company. We did it one division, now we're going to roll out to other divisions. So it's a quality control manufacturing solution, basically. With a different company, it's an insurance company, and we're helping them with risk. So they want to understand how to reduce their risk, of course. And our math is perfect for that. So that's a good fit. We have another company, it's a little bit bio, but it's about people who are on, if you have dialysis problem, how do they know what your prospects are and what to do about it? And so we're a good fit for that. So we have another one that's pretty funny in a way. It's a veterinary problem. We're using computer vision to look at dead cows in feedlots. This partner is the largest data holder in North America. And if you can do this properly, it's faster, cheaper, and more accurate than the current system. And it allows them to use less antibiotics in the food. So like that's win-win, I like that. And other things that are in that kind of the hardest things you can find that move the needle, basically. We're discussing how to do something in climate change right now. But that's the level that we want to play at.
I was thinking about that, and I think one thing is, when does a big hurricane, or where, when you look at climate change in general, but just when you look at the US, when will it affect again New Orleans or the East Coast and so on? That already could help do better predictions, being able to then know we need to do something here. In Germany, you might have read, I think it was all over the media worldwide, where they did predict, but they didn't really act on this. The floods. So
we had I've just recently, in the last few weeks, been doing TV shows with a group out of Britain and on climate change. And that has led to something quite interesting. So this fits our conversation today, I think. I was interviewing them, of course, like, and these are kind of famous scientists from Britain in climate change. Cambridge, I think they're mainly from Cambridge. And I was talking to this fellow named Peter Wadhams, who's the world expert, I think, on Arctic ice and Greenland and so on. And we quickly ripped through this boring stuff that everyone knows. And I said, look, Peter, when I work on things, I'm looking for patterns that are like spread out across the landscape, not just within one silo. And I'm tired of hearing about this 1.5 or 2.6. I think everyone's bored with that. And my question for you is it possible that these various silos of problems are going to gang up together and interact and create a mammoth event that nobody's even clued into?
Yes. And
he goes, yeah, I think that's possible. And this, now we're cooking here. It's like, okay, Peter, in your mind, how soon? And I don't mean to predict, just what's the soonest that it could happen? And what is it going to look like? And he said, it's going to look like California right now. And he went on, this is a video, you can find it on YouTube. And then I said, I had to bring him back and say, okay, so tell me how soon? He said, 5 years. Now we're talking. Because I think you could have a conversation with the world about that problem that nobody's even conceived of yet. They're saying, oh, sea level, I'll be dead. I don't care, 20, 30, who cares? But if you said, in 5 years, California is going to become a wasteland of fire or something, that's a little different. So I think that this is the kind of thing that pattern computer might be good at. We can look at the major events already, of very different types, see the correlations that aren't apparent to most people. Peter said something interesting. He said they used to be out of time with each other, out of sync, but now they seem to be syncing. That's bad. So, there is a clue, right? So I think that our system could look at very different types of data around the world and see things that hadn't been seen yet and issue a warning to the world, perhaps more effectively than the IPCC's papers, even though they're very scientific. They don't seem to have a large effect in many ways.
Yeah. Still, problem is governments kind of need to believe and act on that. Yeah, and if you could predict, that there will be a huge storm and Australia gets wiped away, yeah, and you predict it right, then probably everyone would believe you on other continents. But of course, then already had hit a continent. Yeah, so
yeah,
it's but it hopefully will help that politics will get more and more out of the way, and we can more and more believe science and patterns.
Yeah, I hope so too. We're no good at politics. Someone else is going to have to do that heavy lifting.
Yeah. Oh, we have an election coming up on the 26th. Would be interesting. 26th of September will be interesting. What you kind of predicting on that? But that wasn't a serious question.
No, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah. So I think looking at the time, I think this is my last question. What's your dream for the future of the company and also for the technology kind of in general? Yeah.
You don't hear, I don't know. I think people are quite depressed these days, and I think the internet is partly responsible for it, but you don't hear words like wonder or excitement or discovery. I think in the early 1900s, everyone felt like that. So for the company, my dream is to do what we talked about today. If we can pick the biggest, most important problems and solve them rather easily and quickly, this is going to be a great company. Great to work for, great to go to work every morning, and great to work together, and great to work with other partners. The whole thing is going to be fun as spit, as they say. So I hope that's our destiny. And in doing that, maybe it brings some excitement and wonder and hope to people.
Yeah. I think I would hope for you and your company having, start with one big success, which commercially, brings you beyond tech-wise billions, because then you have enough money to spend it on all those other problems.
I hadn't thought of that, Ragnar, but that's a good idea.
So, Mark, it is and was and always is a pleasure meeting you and seeing you, and hopefully soon enough also again in person. I thank you very, very much, and I try to be as humble as possible, really, because we were really delighted having you here. So we clearly will reach out to see how we can help you and support you and hopefully help you to become also very successful, so that you can focus and get more of some of those problems solved. So thank you very much being here. And looking at the time, we actually have a little networking session, so that which will kind of start here, and you might have a couple of minutes to stay on for some of the questions in the audience, and so that we can continue on that.